showing out, making moves, no doubt. FFA pride, it's what we're all about. From classroom dreams to real world flair, we got the stories you won't find anywhere. Beyond the jacket where the stories unfold, voices of the future, fearless and bold. Tune in now, let the passion ignite. It's more than a jacket, it's a way of life. Beyond the jacket where passion meets purpose.
Hey guys, welcome back to Beyond the Jacket. We're super excited to sit down with some pretty cool people today and talk about some more interesting SAEs. We are so excited that our guest is involved in everything from ag communications to swine production and everything in between. I'm super excited as a solo host today to sit down with Taylor. Why don't you introduce yourself to our listeners?
Hi guys, my name is Taylor Nothdurft. I'm originally from the Oak Ridge FFA chapter right here in Southeast Missouri. I'm currently at the University of Missouri studying agriculture education with a minor in ag communications and ag business. I'm serving as a Missouri FFA state officer this year, and I'm super excited to talk with you all today.
I'm super excited to have you. That's quite an impressive little resume that I got to hear. I'm excited to learn more. When did you start your journey in the FFA? I know it didn't start by being a state officer, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. My journey in FFA kind of got started throughout junior high. I took an exploratory ag class my 7th grade year, and I really got along with my ag teacher. And we just connected a lot over the material that we were learning in class. And, you get to hear a little bit about FFA throughout that time in junior high. And it just really seemed like something that I would enjoy. And my 8th grade year, my mom went to parent-teacher conferences, and my ag teacher sat her down and just told her that he really thought that FFA would be something really good for me, and that he could see me going very far in the organization. And so whenever my freshman year rolled around, it was without a doubt, no question that I was going to join. And I wanted to be as involved as possible and just try every opportunity that came my way. So it was definitely stepping stones that kind of paved the way for me to be able to join.
We definitely have a similar story. I started FFA in the 7th grade as well, just kind of tiptoeing around, finding my interest. I definitely had a background in ag, though, so I kind of knew a little bit about FFA, but had never done it. Was your first time experience with agriculture in the classroom, or do you have family in it, or how were you first introduced to it?
Yeah, absolutely. So my situation it's kind of funny reflecting back on it now. So my stepmom is a farmer, and my dad used to farm on our family farm in Gordonville, Missouri, with my uncle and my grandpa. I definitely have a very strong agricultural background, but it was not something that I was ever really aware of. I just kind of thought it was normal, and I didn't really pay much attention. I didn't ask questions, and I never really showed interest in the family farm. But once I got involved in FFA and I started showing those interests in agriculture, I went home and I started asking questions, which led me to be more involved in our family farm. I definitely would grow up as what some call a city girl. I was not all about riding in the tractor with dad. And now I appreciate those moments that I was able to share whenever I was younger with my family. But yeah, in the beginning, it was definitely something that I wasn't really aware of.
No, I also grew up in agriculture, like I said before, and that's such the truth. Everybody else did it. I don't want to do it. I want to pave my own way. And I've taken the same path you have. Fell in love with agriculture once again through FFA and my time in the classroom, and now I'm an ag communications major at the University of Florida. So very similar, definitely want to advocate for our industry and dabble in all the different areas of ag, but I think you already have a step above me in that area. What are all of your SAEs? Like, what? Oh my gosh, it just blows my mind. Tell me and the listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. So whenever I originally started FFA, I was looking for that SAE, and it started off with me volunteering at a therapeutic horsemanship center, which is my service learning SAE project. So I did that for 5 consecutive years, and I loved it. But throughout my sophomore year, I just kind of got to the point to where I was looking for more, and I wanted another project to kind of take on. And so my freshman year, I also got some bottle calves, which is kind of where my diversified livestock plays in. But my sophomore year, I decided that I was going to show pigs. My uncle had reached out to me because my cousins were going to be showing for the second year in a row. And I was very, very hesitant at first. But eventually I agreed. And that's what opened up my swine production entrepreneurship. And my agriculture education is something that I did through Ag Ed on the Move. I used that platform to kind of jumpstart my career in Ag Ed. And I used it to, I eventually branched out and I started a petting zoo at my school that we host annually for kindergarten up until 6th grade. And it's where all of our FFA members get to highlight their SAE projects. And we use it as a very educational event. It's not just coming to pet a horse. You get to learn all about the horse's anatomy and conformation and different things like that. And my senior year, I was loving ag. I was loving Ag Ed. I was wanting to highlight more of that background that I had and some of my classmates had. And that's what sparked me to start my agriculture communications SAE, which started off on social media and has now branched out to the advocates journey.
Wow. That's so much. So much. You were a busy girl in high school, and I'm sure you still are very busy, and being in college as a state officer, I'm sure juggling all of that is not easy, and it's so impressive, especially, I think the petting zoo thing is so cool. There's so many diverse ideas that I've got to hear about through the podcast with the POAs of different chapters, and that's definitely probably one of my new favorites I can add to the list. So Taylor, obviously you're a state officer, and I want to talk about that in the future of your episode, but were there leadership positions you held prior to this that led you up to that moment?
Yeah, absolutely. I was able to serve as a chapter officer for 3 years and an area officer for 2. I was able to serve as our chapter parliamentarian, vice president, and president, and then I was able to serve as our area treasurer and president.
Wow, that's a lot. I loved my time as an officer, and like going into college and things that I'm sure you can absolutely relate, that it's not always easy to stand up for yourself or to plan things, or there's a lot of pressure there, especially when you're walking into college. But I feel like those relationships and even the networking as an officer's duties are that when you get into those roles beyond the jacket, not to be super cheesy, that it's super helpful. However, that always comes with a little bit of pressure. Do you feel like now as a state officer, like that pressure is on, or was that early on and now towards the end of your year of service, you're like, okay, I got this. I've prepared for this moment?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a little bit of both. I think anytime that you're in a leadership position, it's kind of always like a roller coaster. You know, you have your ups and your downs. I think that at first I was very nervous that I wasn't going to be able to like properly serve the members of Missouri FFA, just because it is on such a larger scale than what Oak Ridge or Area 15 ever was. And it is a lot of pressure, but it's also, I feel like I'm just very thankful for the opportunity, and I want to do the best that I can with the time that I have. And so it's very nerve-wracking, and being in college and having a lot of new things that are coming my way, it definitely gets a little bit difficult at times, but overall, I just try to take every single step with grace. And like I said, do the best so that I can in the little time that I have.
Yes. Being a state officer is the pinnacle, you know, and the state association, and so many kids look up to you. And I think that's something that you can remind yourself of, that you are the person that other people are admiring, and they see you as a role model. And even though there's a lot of pressure on you, you are definitely someone that other kids want to be when they grow up. And that's a piece of motivation that I carried with me through FFA. In my time, both in middle school and in high school. But because Beyond the Jacket is more so focused on SAEs, I definitely want to talk about your horsemanship FFA. Your horsemanship SAE. Sorry, I got tongue-tied there. Because I don't have a lot of experience with horses, and I think that would be super cool for our listeners to hear about.
Yeah, absolutely. So my mom worked at this place that was called the Hope Center Therapeutic Riding the Hope Therapeutic Horsemanship Center. And I was able to volunteer there throughout, I think I started in 6th grade is whenever I started volunteering there. And at first it started off with just helping the individuals both with and without disabilities being able to like brush the horse. So I would go and get the horse out of the stall and I'd tie it up at the cross ties, and they would go and they would like brush it and groom it. I would help them saddle up the horse before we rode. And then I would be in the riding arena while they were riding. But they have a riding instructor that would, do all of the therapy or the riding lessons. The longer I was there, the more responsibilities I got to take on. And I got to the point to where I was almost a certified riding instructor. I really enjoyed that just because I feel like I got to see so many different people from so many different backgrounds. And one thing that was really neat with the Hope Center is that their goal was not just to provide therapy services through horsemanship. They wanted to take those individuals with disabilities and make it to where they could fully ride on their own. So we would have people that were wheelchair bound, and they would be in a paraplegic saddle, and they would be able to ride a horse on their own throughout at the end of their time there, which was really eye-opening just to see, somebody who couldn't even walk being able to ride a horse completely on their own. And the looks on the kids' faces, they enjoyed it so much, and I enjoyed getting to help them throughout that.
That's so inspiring, especially from someone who hasn't been challenged in that way. It's inspiring to watch somebody through that dedication and charisma to be able to work through those challenges. And of course, for you, it's so empowering to have those moments and work your way through the years of learning that experience to its fullest extent. That's super special. I have to know though, are you going to incorporate that into your ag ed lessons when you become the most renowned ag teacher?
Absolutely. I love horses. That's something that my family has always been very close with. Me and my siblings, we trail ride, and a couple of my sisters rodeo. And so it's always been something that's very near and dear to my heart. And I think that there's so many unique lessons that you can do with horses just because they're so different from swine and cattle. So I definitely look forward to being able to highlight my equine experiences throughout the classroom whenever I am an ag teacher.
Yes, that's the most fun about being an ag teacher is you get to apply real world concepts into education. We talked with a couple ag teachers last week on the podcast, and I love being able to see both sides of the FFA experience, especially now being outside of the jacket. You kind of get to understand what your teachers were juggling and now what the students were trying to pursue and achieve of their own goals. But I also want to know more about your diversified ag SAE. I was ag communications all the way, a little bit of beef entrepreneurship. So when I hear about these super cool SAEs that dabble in so many different industries, I want to know more.
Yeah, absolutely. So my diversified livestock production SAE started off with my horses. I had 2 horses. One was a Tennessee Walker and one was a quarter horse. And like I said, I was just kind of looking for more. I always loved horses, and it wasn't something that I wanted to stop doing, but I was looking to take on more responsibility and kind of get a little bit more of that diversified background within agriculture. And so I got 2 bottle calves. One was originally supposed to be for me, and then the other was supposed to be for my sister. However, my sister quickly figured out that cattle is not for her. So I later, as we like to say, adopted him. So I started off with those 2 bottle calves, and I ended up having a total of 4 bottle calves throughout the time that I had them. I really enjoyed that, but I just got to the point to where I was so busy that I couldn't be in the barn at 4 a.m. Feeding them anymore. So I did that for 2 years and then decided to put that to rest. But then whenever I got my pigs, we started off with just a small little show herd. So I would just buy a hog, show it, sell it. But then we realized that we had a very high demand for show pigs in our area of the state. And I also show pigs along with my cousins, and we were each showing 2 to 3 hogs ourselves. And so we were needing to purchase a lot of pigs at one time. So then we decided, well, how about we just raise them? I was very privileged. My grandpa used to be a hog farmer, and so he had all of his old facilities that we were just able to revamp and use for our own purposes and kind of make it to what we needed. So I definitely had a little bit of an easy start whenever it came to my swine production side of it. But I really enjoyed being able to have so many different varieties of livestock. I feel like anything that you can do to make yourself a more rounded person and expose yourself to more aspects of agriculture is always a really good thing. And I definitely have learned a lot of lessons through that. So,
yeah, there's so many lessons, both the good and the bad, and those road bumps in the road that lead you forward. I'm definitely jealous of the barn scenario. I know that when I got my first hog when I was little, and we had jerry-rigged our pen for them, and then obviously as I got older and showed more, and I showed cattle and different things, we got a little bit better. But your grandpa's barn, that was definitely a little leg up in that SAE there. Talk to me about those lessons you learned. What was a challenge you faced that now you can apply later, or what's something you'll never forget about your SAE?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that one thing that honestly all of my SAEs in general have taught me is that it's okay to resort to plan B. I'm a very type A person. Some may call me perfectionist. So I always really struggled whenever things didn't go as planned. I didn't know what to do, what was going to be my next step. And whenever you have livestock, things are always going wrong. Things are always hitting the fan, as some may say. And I, especially through showing pigs, sometimes you're in the show ring, and if your hog is acting a fool, like, what do? The judge's eyes are on you. And so I feel like it definitely has helped me have that it's okay to go back to plan B, and it's okay if things don't go as planned, and kind of go away from that perfectionist mindset. And I feel like I enjoy living in the moment a lot more. Some of our show animals, like their time on this planet is short. And I think growing up around livestock and being in agriculture and lessons that my SAEs have taught me is definitely just to soak up every moment and enjoy that time that you do have.
That resonates so deeply with me. Like, I am such the plan A girl too. I am so type A. I have to have an outline for every podcast episode, and I have to have it scheduled, and the whole 90 I have to have before it starts. And then when the audio cuts out, like it did to Taylor and I before this, I'm like, oh God, what am I going to do? So I can definitely relate to that instance. And moving forward in your career as an ag teacher or with your family, however that works, it'll definitely apply in the future. Do you have a favorite SAE story, maybe with your bottle calves or even with your ag ed SAE, that is just something that it brings you so much joy?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that some of my most fond memories throughout some of my SAEs has to be with my Ag Ed SAE. I got to do Ag Ed on the Move for 4 years in a row, and we kind of took the program and ran with it. We added in some extra lessons, and we turned their 12-week-long program into a full year-long program with the third graders. And so I got to go twice a week for a whole school year to the third grade classroom and teach them about ag. And I definitely have some funny stories about those third graders, and I doubt that we have time to dive into them all today. But just being able to see those young minds grasp to the concepts of agriculture that I was teaching them and kind of some of the connections that they made. We did one lessons where they have to draw a garden and like just some of their creative ideas that they had. You'll have one that will like make their garden in the shape of a heart or something like that. But then you have another one who's like using recycled plastic. And it's like, I never knew that third graders had this in-depth thinking. So I definitely have a lot of really fun memories from teaching those third graders, and they definitely shocked me a lot.
Oh my gosh. That's insane. I don't think I would have thought to draw my garden in the shape of a heart or used recycled plastics. That's awesome. I also loved Ag Ed, and I think that's just something that comes with FFA. You gain a voice in the Blue Jacket, and then you just want to encourage others by using it. You'll enjoy this story. I taught a group of ages kindergarten to 6th grade in high school for a little while. It was definitely an age gap, so I had to have lessons that worked for both. And so the typical thing around Florida, like your first ag lesson, always making butter. I'm not sure if you've done that.
Yes.
It's definitely an FFA thing, is making butter. So I did this, and I remember like asking the kids, like, where does your hamburger come from? Where does your milk come from? Because obviously we have little kids to middle schoolers, and one of the little girls was like, oh, hamburger comes from the store, like Walmart, right? And I remember just being like defeated, number one, but also that was my call to action. And I think your call to action was just seeing that these little minds have so much room to grow, and you can help them grow and flourish even more. So let's talk more about your leadership role. We talked a lot about your SAE. What's your favorite part about being a state officer?
That's a very loaded question. I have a lot of favorite parts about being a state officer. It's honestly the opportunity of a lifetime, and I'm so happy that I get to wear association across my back. I think that just connecting with all the members, I get to do my chapter visits, and I get to see the members in their element. Whenever we go to like FFA camp or state and national convention, I always like to say like they're on our turf. They're in our element, versus I think that going back to those chapter roots and getting to see them in their everyday lives and in their classroom setting just truly helps you build those really strong connections. And that has definitely been my favorite part. And also, of course, as an future ag teacher, I love going and seeing all of the different activities and like lessons that they are learning within their ag classes. And I'm definitely keeping a notebook down of some ideas that I'd like to use in the future.
That's such a good idea. Lesson plan early, girl. Get it out of the way. There you go. Was there somebody in your FFA career, maybe a mom or a grandparent or even a teacher, that was truthfully like your roadmap, your shining star that just kept you going? Because not every day is easy, like we talked about before.
Yeah, absolutely. I am very fortunate that I have a very supportive family. And honestly, I could go down a list all day long of the people that have supported me and impacted my life. I think that my grandparents are a huge one for me, just because they've always motivated me to pursue bigger things and to keep going. And, when I get knocked down, they're the first ones to reach out and hold their hand to pull me back up. And obviously my parents have been so amazing. They always support my crazy ideas. I'm definitely a very busy person, and so they're very supportive of that. And my aunt and my aunt served as a state officer throughout her time in FFA, and my uncle was the one who kind of got me involved in the show pigs. And so I definitely have had a lot of helping hands throughout my journey in agriculture.
I love that. I love the helping hands part, because everybody's had a hand in your journey. That was good. That was a really good phonetic little thing there. Is there something you would tell the younger FFA members, and I'm sure in your role that you have, and maybe you have a canned response for this, but is there something you would tell younger FFA members or even younger Taylor that just to inspire them for the future in their FFA journey, or maybe they just don't know where they're going and you can help be that shining star for them?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that my biggest advice is always just get as involved as you can. Even if you're scared, like say yes, because there are so many opportunities that I have been able to do throughout FFA and just being involved in the ag industry as a whole that I never would have thought that I would have done. But once you're involved and you take advantage of those opportunities that come your way, the rest just kind of falls into place. And I feel like it has made me such a more well-rounded individual. I definitely understand a lot more different backgrounds than what I would have. My freshman year, I was never a shy person. Hard to believe, but I've never been shy. I've never been scared to talk to people, but I was always scared of like stepping up. I felt like I possessed a lot of the traits, but I didn't exactly have the confidence to pursue it. And FFA has definitely shown me that I can do that. And there's so many different opportunities that you can take, not just through FFA, but, many student-ran organizations as a whole. And I think that once you start saying yes to those opportunities, that it definitely just is eye-opening, the change that can happen.
Yes. But I just answered with yes. But in that same breath, just being active and being involved, those connections, like you were saying, Taylor, they're so invaluable, because as I sit here in college as a sophomore, there's individuals that I've called for help with the podcast or with different projects at school, and I'm like, hey, do you remember me? I was that curly-headed girl in the blue jacket. And they're like, oh my gosh, yes, this is what we worked on when you were in high school. And those connections are so invaluable, and they'll serve you well even going into being an ag teacher. These are people you're going to work with in the future and move forward. But I do have to say that we're about to round out your episode, so I have one last question for you. In one of my ag communications classes right now, we are learning what success is and who a real leader is. And one of the questions that I got asked this week was, how do you define success? So I'm going to ask you this just because we're kind of on the same track, and I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the quote, success is a mindset. I actually, whenever I first started my ag communications journey, I had a friend that shared that with me. I was doing a little graphic mock-up of her, and she said that was the quote that she wanted to put at the top of it. And it just has really stuck with me. And I feel like it's hard for a person like me to determine when you've succeeded, just because I'm a very driven person and I'm always trying to accomplish more. But I think that success is whenever you look back and you feel satisfied. Like whenever you can look back on those moments and you can smile, that's how you know that you've succeeded. I think that so many times we get caught up in, the accomplishments that we get, or the awards that we hung up on the wall. And for us livestock kids, the banners and buckles. But I think that, we forget about the memories that we accomplish along the way. And definitely having that ability to be able to look back and be like, oh yeah, I did that. And, oh, I forgot that I, have grown that much. To me, that's truly succeeding. I think back on my freshman self and how much I've come along and the amount of people that I've been able to meet. And that's truly how I define success, is just, can you look back on that moment and smile?
No, I love that. And that's something we haven't talked about in class. See, everybody's answer is different and they're so unique. And it's growth of somebody's mindset and the experiences you gain, not success and failure. That's so cut and dry and black and white. My mom always used to say, Taylor, that you can't melt those buckles down into gold. The memories are definitely worth gold. So I'll leave you with that on this podcast episode. And I have had the privilege of having such a valuable conversation with you today. I love learning about all of your SAE projects. You surely are a busy gal. But thank you for joining us on the podcast. Listeners, if you want to hear more from other guests just like Taylor of Incredible FFA Kids, be sure to tune in every Friday.